Buddy, this is Rydo, and we are back with another live stream of Hearthstone. Today is Monday, October 9th. We've got a decent amount of news, and we have 3 daily quests to do, which we only really need to get 2 of to get done. So win 2 games with Shaman and Warlock is my pick to trade out, and that means play. Let's see, we need to play some cheap minions, we need to play some expensive minions, and we need to play some beasts. And none of those are very difficult at all. The only thing, we have only gotten up to rank 19, so maybe we could play a little bit of ranked play too. Tavern Brawl won't be back for a day, so we don't have to deal with that. So we can really just comp in here and begin. So let's see, if we need to play cheap things and we want to get up on ranked, let's do a little bit of our standard Murloc play, but we also need to play beasts, so we should actually do this one. So that's a good start here. A little late to the party today in our stream, later than what I would like, but I can almost guarantee that there will be no consistency on stream times ever, unless people want to tolerate a consistency of me streaming at like 7 o'clock Central Time or 10 o'clock Central Time, which people don't. Like, when we approach the midnight time period, people don't seem to like that. Or at least people on the chat don't. There's always this fear of me overly listening to the 15 people that are on chat and ignoring the 15 other people that don't get in chat. So, let's, I suppose, just get on with it and go through the news. There's not an incredibly large amount of them, and I don't have a lot to really talk about otherwise, so let's see. Play that and then end the turn. Quake Champions buffs almost every character except for Sorlog, according to this article. Now, for me personally, I don't think Quake Champions is a great place to succeed because of the simple fact that people who wanted to play Quake still can play Quake. It's been ported to everything, so now there's this separate game by a similar name that doesn't really satisfy the old audience at all, and instead becomes this new thing. It is effectively Quake's attempt at doing something like Overwatch. Who Solog is, he's I think a reptile style creature. Personally, the Quake arena run and gun style of gameplay wasn't anything that interested me anyways, so and I think more to the point, even if you are interested in Quake Champions, you're not gonna really be in the right position to care about that game until it's a finished product, or at least it is the beginning of a finished product. And right now it feels very much like it's a it's still in beta. So Stronghold 2 Steam Edition is going to reboot the 2005 strategy game multiplayer servers. Let's look at the trailer for Stronghold to see how good Stronghold 2 looks in these new conditions. Well, it looks like a medieval style of a top-down city management game with probably a focus on, some of the Age of Empires style of attacking and defeating enemies. Honestly, going back and thinking about it, some of those games, like Age of Empires and even Warcraft and StarCraft, are kind of an odd mix of two very separate styles of gameplay. Like, I wouldn't be surprised if there's actually a lot of audience that would like something like StarCraft for the base building, but not like it for the attacking and the warfare aspect. And I bet there's a few people that like a lot of people that like the warfare aspect of something like StarCraft, but don't like the base building aspect. So yeah, sometimes getting your peanut butter and your chocolate mixed together is not the best thing, particularly if somebody's allergic to peanut butter or somebody doesn't like chocolate. I'm still having a lot of fun watching people play Cuphead. I wish I kind of was playing it myself. I'm slowly approaching the idea of trying by this time next year to be to a point financially where I can just buy new games as they come out, because right now, for probably the first time since I've started streaming, or at the very least the first time this year, there are some real games I want to play instead of that I want to play right now, and I really don't want to wait. And my collection of games isn't great, particularly for the AAA style games. Now, also, that being said, there's a factor to calculate into this, because I don't think I'm going to make as much content going forward. I didn't make what I was making. I basically took off 2 hours of content for November, and I think I'm gonna take off 2 hours of content for December too, and I think I'm just gonna really try to make 2018 the year in which I get achieve my goal, which I'm still trying to achieve, of having a year of pre-recorded footage already ready to go. And frankly, not that many people are watching the pre-recorded content anyway, so I'm filling out my channel, but my channel's already as big as many channels. So now I'm kind of just putting content out there just because. And people, I don't think, are as retrospective as I am. Like, I don't think people want to go back and look at old games as much as I sometimes do. Next thing, there's a game called 7 The Days Long Gone. It's a isomorphic open world RPG that is coming out December 1st. Let's watch this trailer. Again, this is probably just an PC Gamer ad for for the game, but I'm in a weird position as a video game reporter, or at least that's one of the things I do, is I end up having to watch a lot of ads. And kind of unrelated, but speaking of watching things, I'm going to go watch the Blade Runner 2049, which is a 2-hour and 45-minute movie tomorrow, so I'm spending a massive amount of time to watch one movie. But that's fine. And see, that almost got everything done. We just need like one more game. Man, that trailer did not show me anything. Let's see. I guess when you think about it, the original Blade Runner movie is pretty long too, but I think this is even longer. Yeah, I've seen 2 trailers of this game now, 7 days long gone. Still do not have a clue what it's about or anything. Those were pretty bad trailers. Let's see. Here, there's an early access game called Reality Incognito. Why did I click on this one? Well, whatever reason I clicked on it, it doesn't actually look very good at all. So, forget that. Pretend like I didn't mention that game. Sometimes I just have to look. Let's see. So here's a story. The Telltale game Batman: The Enemy Within apparently just stole a photo off the internet. And the photo has a dead person in front of a bank. And it turns out that that photo is the photo of a dead Russian diplomat who'd been assassinated. So, you see a photograph of a dead person and his assassin standing over him when you click on the link for comparison. Oh, this is, I think, the guy that where the bodyguard who was also a former policeman shot him. Anyway, so they used that image and just stole it. Blatant, like, blatant misuse, I would say, of that image. Like, you get into a weird point there, I suppose, is that somebody somewhere probably claims a copyright on something like that, but should something like that be copyrightable? Should anything be copyrightable? I'm getting down to the point where I think copyright should be almost non-existent. Like, if there was a new deal that said we'll get rid of all copyrights tomorrow, I'd be like, fine, okay, anybody can use all 5,000 of my videos for any reason they want. If copyrights are gone, then I'd be like, probably wouldn't change it or affect my channel in one way or the other. More than likely, YouTube would still have their own personal rules against using or uploading other people's content. The general ideas of copyright would still probably be enforced, because that's what the Content ID system already is a extra legal enforcement of a copyright system that doesn't quite follow the law.
Job's done.
Apparently No Man's Sky has a new save game system. Let's see what this is. It says the save system to try to save and make it easier to manage saves between game modes. The new system has 5 save slots. If you select an empty slot, you'll be taken to the game mode selection screen where you start a new game. And there's no limit to how many saves you can have for a particular game mode. You could have 5 saves of the same mode if you like. Any existing saves will map to the 5 save slots. You know what this really feels like is that they're working to shut down the servers on No Man's Sky. I wouldn't be surprised if that's exactly what this is. So you install a new save game system so that your worlds start generating on your computer and not through a server, and the multiplayer feature that barely exists in No Man's Sky can just be removed, and they can shut down the servers and move on. Let's see. Here's a Rolling Stone article, which is odd because that is not one of the news reporting sites that I get much news from. Let's see. I'm trying to see if this is actually worthwhile. So here's the problem with reading a story from a new source. You don't really know the source, so you really shouldn't trust it. People in general trust news people or alleged news people way too much. And so I don't know what agenda or bend or perspective Rolling Stone might have, but it almost certainly does have some. But whatever, this story is kind of harmless. Apparently Square Enix has decided to turn a manga called Project Hikari, H-I-K-A-R-E, into an immersive virtual reality comic. This is let's see. In Project Hikari, players strap on a virtual reality headset and are dropped in front of the panels of a manga titled The Tale of the Wedding Rings. The panels come to life, sometimes moving to swallow up the viewer, pushing them inside the panel, and sometimes simply turning the panel into animated scenes of from the traditionally static manga. Which I guess really means that this is kind of like Comic Zone, or which is a pretty old Sega game.
Job's done.
The only difference is mangas are inherently designed to be cheap. They're only printed in black and white grayscale. So now you have this virtual reality game that's going to you're gonna put your $600 VR headset on to look at a black and white manga. The animations as still pictures that I'm seeing on this article do look alright, but I think you probably are doing a lot of extra work for that too, because you've more than likely got to make a 360 scene, and that may mean that only 40 degrees of a 360 degree circle has anything interesting in it, and then the rest is just random speed tree elements, random trees, random backgrounds, or you're even worse going to see panels and just borders when you turn around and look behind you, and you may just see a big wall of white. Now I see that this is probably focused on Japan too, and while this concept on the face of it, might get more Japanese people into VR. There's still some major flaws in the fact that Japanese houses are not... Let's move over to the Murlocs. They're not big enough for VR. So, only PlayStation VR would make any sense in Japan. And the manga's not going to sell that. I don't think you can cheaply make manga to fill the world. It's not going to be an automated process. It's going to be a lot of money to turn mangas that usually only cost, what, I think they cost some 250 yen, about 250 each, and they go forever, and usually. So, I don't, yeah. This seems like a very ambitious and very not thought out process. I'm noticing, by the way, that Red Phoenix is on the chat. He says, comics in VR, what's next? Books in VR? That would be weird. Certainly would. But that kind of is the next thing down this thing. It would be Japanese light novels in VR. And that doesn't make any sense compared to a to a cell phone or a tablet. I have personally felt that trying to read books or comic books on a cell phone has the screen too small, so I get the idea of VR, but honestly, your VR glasses are going to have to be as small as sunglasses, and you're going to have to be able to ride a train, and you're going to have to be able to wander around the city with these glasses, these imaginary, non-existent, cheap VR glasses that Red Phoenix says VR and VR. I think we probably already have a gag of VR and VR in probably the Rick and Morty game, or one of the other gag VR games. You know what really tells me that manga and VR is not ready for prime time? It's the fact that right now there is no streaming service like Crunchyroll that for many different devices for manga. And there is no application in the PlayStation 4 or the Xbox One, or even Steam for that matter, that focuses on manga either. So they've really missed some steps. That probably they should have taken first. Movies in VR? Yeah. Again, that's not really gonna work. Movies will probably get to VR at some point because it's a passive event, but you have to get to the point where you can sit for 2 hours and 45 minutes, which is the running time of Blade Runner 2049, and comfortably have a virtual reality headset. I can't even watch the 3D movies. Yep. There is something nice too about the tactile feel of even holding a manga, because it's a book, it's in your hand, it's cheap, you can take it with you, you can bend back the spine, you don't have to worry about it if you want to collect things. Oddly, even though the Japanese don't have any space at all. Their houses are incredibly tiny. They do like to collect things that they're really in love with. So their bookshelf of mangas is pretty common if you've seen anime or a decent amount of anime. That like almost every Japanese teenager has a bookshelf full of mangas. And I don't think they'd be willing to give that up for a VR headset. Because they haven't, at least to my knowledge, given it up for even a cell phone. Let's see. And as I thought, that my music player I don't think is working. We'll see if that fixes it. Skip it over to the next song.
I'll put it on your tab.
So next story, God Eater Resident Ops is announced for smartphones. The God Eater series is what? I've heard the name, certainly. It's a name that sticks in your head. But it's a monster fighting game, it looks like. Freeze an enemy and then destroy the other guy. I don't think the God Eater series has come to the West. Yeah. It looks like a monster fighting RPG, but looks like it has a lot of cards and characters in it. Some of these series of games that haven't come to the West, if they ever do decide to come to the West, are going to end up releasing so much content that I don't even know how you pull it off successfully. If you've got 25 games in Japanese, do you release the latest one and then forget about all the previous ones? Or do you try to slowly remake and re-release the old ones and resell it to a new audience? Sadly, it's more likely the case that that as companies go down the path of making sequel after sequel only for Japan, they're probably just digging themselves even deeper into the thought of never releasing it to the rest of the world. Right. We've already had 2 games that tried to do PT and failed. But here is yet another game called Visage, V-I-S-A-G-E, that has a trailer, 22-minute trailer of wandering around the house. Let's do this. So the only game that actually did PT moderately well was Resident Evil 7. But even in that, Resident Evil had its own little spin on it.
The scourge will devour all.
Let's see, there's a VR game about fixing defective cats called Cat Sorter. Let's see. And might as well throw it out there. A game that I bought a while ago, but has been in early access for rather a long time, called Press X Not to Die, is finally out of early access. So I'm now free to play that game and cover it, which I've been waiting quite a while time. The longest game I think I've had that's been in early access is Knocked, NOCT, which, like, I got that game free, and it had an interesting artistic idea and then not really much of a game around it, and it doesn't seem like it's really done anything since then. That kind of is the growing issue with early access. It was kind of the issue immediately with early access too, is that you would... Man, am I losing connection? Games would just come out and not ever be finished. Well, this cat sorter video game looks like it's just yet another ridiculous VR game. Mostly evolved around moving cats around and throwing cats in different places using the VR connectors. With every new ridiculous joke of a game in VR, at this point, the more I feel that VR itself is just for joke games. We really haven't seen anything that is a deep, thoughtful game that was a big seller on VR. Abduction might actually be the best option there. There's probably a couple other games that have VR modes like Abduction, but also are playable outside of VR, and that's why I can't think of them.
My hand is too full.
Don't cover Nintendo very often, but there's an update for ARMS to version 3.2, so they're going to add some more things to it. Good for them. Let's continue to play things. Let's see. There's a game called Fear Effect Sedna's Tale, S-E-D-N-A. I'm having to spell a lot of things these days today. Alright. So I now need to play 10 more things that are expensive. Actually, I don't. Like, I can just leave this as it is. And honestly, I might even trade this with the new Monday, Wednesday, and Friday streaming. Yeah, I might just switch this out and see if I get something different. Because at least I'd have that option. That's, I suppose, maybe part of the reason why people always ask me where I get the gold is but it might be because people play play the 40s and don't trade them out. So I'm gonna switch over to the European server now. Let's move on. This might be a short stream, even though it really shouldn't be. In all honesty, every Monday and Wednesday might just be short streams. Red Phoenix says the stream went offline for 10 seconds. That might be you, that might be me.
There you are, the life of the party.
Like, I can't really do anything about it, so just gonna have to deal with it and move forward. So this game, Fear Effect Sedna's, is a tactical action game coming It's based on a universe of the PS1 classic Fear effect. That would explain why it looks a little weird. It's not very high quality animation. 3 games in a class: Divine Shield and Minions, Elementals. Let's see how we can do this, because this will be interesting. So on the European account, with looking for elementals, let's see how many we could really play. The fact that this is a new goal isn't great. It isn't great for new players, but I think we can probably fill out enough of a... Yeah, we can do 16 of 30, and then we can try to draw into it. Want to get 80 gold. Why can people even play me? Let's see. Alright, I'll take 80 gold. So, Magic Turtle, who I don't even think is watching, sent me a friend request. He declined my request? Seriously? Fine, I'll accept your request. Let's do this. James Anderson came on the streams. Yo, it's been a while since you streamed. Add some spells and taunts too. Not in this case. I don't need spells and taunts. I need just elementals. I've been streaming consistently. YouTube has just been very consistent about not announcing that I'm streaming, so that is a major reason why now I'm doing Monday, Wednesday, and Friday, with it generally starting around 4 or 5 in the Central Time. So not a lot of help there. Red Phoenix says, OMG, I feel like I'm doing 23 different things at the same time. I kind of always feel like that. Like, whether intentional or not, like, there's a lot of different things, particularly when I'm live streaming, I'm doing. I'm reading, I'm talking, I'm commenting, I'm playing Hearthstone. That's why I chose Hearthstone to be the news/blog thing. Like, I've changed it. I used to call it the blog stream, but really it's become more of a news thing, and I don't know if anybody really appreciates the news, but frankly I've kind of also run out of things to talk about. Like, if I was just gonna talk about what I've done over the weekend, it's not really a lot. Like, I tried to play some Christmas games because I'm recording the December footage, and found that there aren't very many Christmas games that are worth playing, including Hatterful Boyfriend Holiday Star is not worth playing. I really did need to play that game though, because that just reminded me that I can never cover visual novels unless they take that extra effort to be voiced acted and have a lot of gameplay in them, because most visual novels, it's just text and text and more text and more text, and it's hours and hours of text, and I can't even go 30 minutes and care. Even in regular games, I just don't have the attention span for it. I want to play games with action, at least some level of action in them. And visual novels don't provide that. So this Fear Effect game, I'm looking at it. It looks like so many other top-down isometric games when you play it, but it seems to have a story there, and it's being kickstarted, so it probably won't ever come out anyways. Death Rattle and Elemental. Keep playing the Elementals.
Buy my beer.
And yeah, my music function is just not.
The end is coming.
Just not working. So let's keep playing. Let's keep our focus.
I'm unstable.
Trying to fix things. Ruiner, a game that recently came out, has decided to tone down its difficulty in the first post-release update. Enemies are more fragile and deal less damage. It almost needs to be, when you do something like that, it needs to be a case of I need to play. It needs to be a case of adding a new mode and not just changing what already exists. But apparently, even in the beginning, it's too difficult. I do want to probably play Ruiner, but it's yet another one of these top-down isometric games that, like, there's so many of them that it's hard to pick the one or two that are good. And Ruiner tried to advertise a lot, but it didn't really get a lot of play as far as I see. Too many people talking about Cuphead. I feel like Cuphead is a much better example of a game that should have had a easy mode, because it really doesn't have an easy mode. It has a simple mode that doesn't allow you to proceed. You can't beat the final boss on simple mode. There just isn't one that exists. And you can't move to World 2 unless you've beaten everything in normal mode. So the simple mode is just kind of this practice mode that you actually doesn't even let you practice, because it doesn't give you invincibility or anything. It just removes one phase of the enemy's attack, so you can't practice on that phase of attack, and it lowers the health. James Anderson asks, what, you got elementals, no queen? That's because I'm playing on my European account and I'm very limited in cards. I have elementals right now because I have a daily quest to play elementals. That is my only goal right now, is to play elemental cards and play 10 and get 50 gold. So here's a story of adding way too many betas and releasing your game way too early. There's a game called Overgrowth that's adding its number 6 and final beta to add story mode. So 5 betas, and by the way, this game was put entered development in 2008, and it's now 2017, so you're talking 9 years of development for this game, and just now it's putting in a beta with story in it. That's unacceptably slow. Overgrowth also is kind of a weird looking game because you're playing as this humanoid rabbit that's running around and fighting as far as this trailer. Seems like an action brawler. Well, now I'm seeing some stealth mechanics and some sword singing, and there Bunny just was impaled on a stick. It seems like it's mostly an action brawler with stealth mechanics. Honestly, I don't see a lot of people wanting to play as a humanoid rabbit in the first place. This feels like one of those ideas that is probably something that the creators love so much that they've lost perspective as far as how much other people like it. I don't think there's enough of a furry community out there to sell a video game on its own, but there probably is still enough of a YouTube streamer community if you were gonna go comedic with it, but it doesn't look like that Overgrowth is really a comedic game either. Here's a Here's a Kickstarter game that has $560 pledged to it and $26 to go. For apparently this is a sequel of a game, and I clearly only clicked on this link because of the name of this game. It's called Fetish Babies Aftermath, and the animation does not look good at all. It looks kind of it's probably a little unfair to say it doesn't look good. It looks like it's been either painted or hand colored with maybe just pencils. It doesn't look CG, and like the story is dedicated to those born with a fetish with BDSM, to let you know you're not alone. Yeah, that's seems like a crock-a-bull. It seems like this is clearly just one of those Kickstarter things that if we try to sell it as intellectual, and then really it's just smut, that might work, and it honestly doesn't even work, and this really does just kind of look like smut. Is this even a video game? Wait a minute, this might just be a comic book. Oops. Yeah, I think this might just be a comic book. Let me come back here, and this might not be video game related at all. I follow a few comic book people, so yeah. Well, that would certainly explain the artistic style if this was just a comic book, because then in still format it still doesn't look that great, but it would make sense. And there are a lot of comic books like this. Let's see, how does Kickstarter work? Like, I'm fatigued myself. Should have played this Elemental. There we go. Red Phoenix came online to say I'm still here. Thank you, Red Phoenix, but let me know. And then James Anderson, geez, how legendary does he need? Yeah. And so we get 80 more gold for watch and learn. Now I need to type in 10 divine shield minions. And that shouldn't show up, but it does on the others for some reason. It does on the European account. Yeah. Yep. Oops. Well, forget everything I just talked about, because this was a comic book Kickstarter. It's still not getting funded or anything, and it's still a ridiculous name. But it has nothing to do with video games. It's kind of the same sentimentality, though. So we need Divine Shield cards, and I may not have too many to even do. Like this, 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 this. The Magic Turtle thought my deck had Inzoth. Good for him. Too much draw. Well, he's obviously not watching my stream, so I'm just not going to respond to him. So he doesn't know that I was simply doing that for the reason of getting the daily quest done, and then this is my secondary account, and I could explain it to him, but what does it really matter? Let's play wild. And let's move on with the stories. Let's see. Wyatt came on the chat and said, hi. James Anderson says, what's the best laptop for gaming? The truth of the matter is there's no good laptop for gaming. There never will be a good laptop for gaming. And if you want to game, you're much better off building a $500 to $1,000 PC and moving it around very carefully than buying a laptop. Inherently, the problem with laptops are they are custom components designed to save battery life, because your battery is a major problem. I have a laptop sitting in front of me right now that has a totally dead battery that I spent $1,000 on, I believe, and I got 3, maybe 4 years out of it, and then the battery's totally dead. It won't even boot up, even when plugged into the wall. Almost always, anybody that uses a laptop, they're always charging, they're always plugging in. There's really no good laptop for gaming, and there never will be. If you build a $500 PC, let's say you got a Pentium i5 processor, and or even an i3, and you got a 1060, which is, I believe, the lowest NVIDIA graphics card I would recommend. Then you filled it with, let's say, just 8 gigabytes of RAM. So you've got like the lowest reasonable CPU, the lowest amount of RAM, the lowest video card. You're still going to be miles away from most laptops, and then you have the ability to start saving up and let's say, well, I'm going to trade out that 1060 for a Titan for another $500, or I'm gonna trade it up. And you can keep the 1060 in the computer even if you're not gonna do anything with it. So you're not doing a huge loss there. If you put 8 gigabytes of RAM and that takes up only, say, 1 slot or 2 slots of a motherboard that has 4 to 8 to maybe even 16 slots of RAM, you could probably add on to that later too. You'd probably have to do some research there. And generally I don't recommend buying CPU and replacing one in your computer. If you're going to replace the CPU, you probably should just replace the motherboard and build a completely new computer at that point. So I would say the number one thing that to do would be to buy as big of a CPU as possible. Darian came on and said, "Yo, James Anderson's, you're in the European server?" Yeah, right now I am.
Mind if I roll knee?
Let's see. And then James Anderson's, I just want one to use for Hearthstone. Well, Hearthstone is not demanding. It runs on almost anything. It runs on your cell phone, first of all. So if it's literally just what's a laptop that I can play Hearthstone on, you're probably talking any laptop at that time. But that's not for gaming. That's a laptop that happens to allow you to play one of the easiest to run games there is.
Hey, give me that.
So I think as long as it's not a Chromebook, I think it will run Hearthstone. You might consider an iPad. Like an older version, used iPad that's not scratched or broken and the battery still seems decent. Then you can play Hearthstone on that, and you've got more of a tablet functionality. But the cheapest thing... Let's see, Red Phoenix, the 1-800 Cars for Kids song just played, and is it weird I sang along? Probably not in crazy weird. It's a little weird.
Must I slay you again? Crusade!
Job's done.
So apparently, to move on with the news, the CD Projekt Red jokingly made a snowboarding game with Geralt, the character from Witcher 3, during the development, and there's some footage of it out there. You know, it doesn't look bad. It's a little clanky in the engine, but I could see why you might need, since there's a lot of mountaintops and things, you might need to program a sliding mechanic when you slide down hills anyways. So effectively all this is they've reanimated their sliding mechanic from The Witcher 3 and their physics mechanic of gravity affecting the characters, and they've changed it so instead of him sliding down the hill in his shoes, he's sliding down the hill on a snowboard, and they probably sped it up a little bit. I suppose that's all well and good, but there is some issues with CD Projekt Red, from what I hear. Let's see. As just the management doesn't seem like they're running they were running the show very well, and it doesn't seem like they've really improved. So that's a much bigger issue to me. James Anderson says, I've got a tablet, but the app closes when I play Hearthstone. Okay, well, your tablet must be particularly old. Here, let's just Google this. Hearthstone minimum requirements. Because this will be an interesting thing for me to see, since I probably haven't looked at this. So, the Hearthstone minimum requirements, let me just zoom up this web page that came up. For Android is 1.2 gigahertz, 1 gigahertz of RAM, and 2 gigabytes of internal storage.
I fight.
Job's done.
Let's see. Let's see what that translates to in
For the war chief.
Windows. Okay. So the minimum requirements are for a PC. So if you were going to go into a store or shop online for a laptop, what you need is a Windows 7, Windows 8, or Windows 10 PC. Realistically, you want Windows 10 64-bit edition. Don't get any 32-bit editions if any of those are still available. An Intel Pentium D or AMD Athlon 64 X2, but realistically you want a Core 2 Duo Edition 2.4 gigahertz or AMD Athlon 64 X2 5000 plus 2.6 gigahertz or better. I would say get at least an i3 processor, and you may not even be able to get an i3 or an i5 or even an i7 on a cell phone, like I mean on a laptop, but that's what I'd be shooting for. The minimum is an NVIDIA GeForce 6800 with 256 megabytes of video RAM, or an ATI Radeon X1600 with 256 megabytes of RAM. Or the recommended is the GeForce 8800 GT with 512 megabytes of video RAM, or an ATI Radeon HD 4850 512 megabytes of RAM. You can Google this yourself to find out to get these specific numbers. Minimum recommended is 2 gigabytes of RAM, and recommended is 4 gigabytes of RAM. So, like, when I suggested that you got a i3 with 8 gigabytes of RAM and a 1060 video card, that puts you in the nice position to be at least assured to play Hearthstone and a good deal of old games, and probably a lot of the new games that come out too on Steam. You need at least 3 gigabytes of hard drive space, broadband internet connection. That's kind of the hardest requirement ever, is that if you're honestly having a lot of trouble in Hearthstone, it's probably because your internet sucks. And then let's see, keyboard and mouse or touchscreen, and a minimum resolution of 1024 by 768. And I suppose it used to be the case, but it may still be the case, that there are some really cheap laptops out there that don't do very high resolutions at all. So They might be doing only 640 by 480 as far as the resolution. So 1024 times 768 is a pretty low resolution. You would want 1920 by 1080 minimum, in my opinion. That's 1080p. That's what you get on a 1080p monitor.
Join or die.
So those are the minimum requirements of just Hearthstone. But I really do think you should be more forward thinking if you're going to spend and invest money and build a small PC, a cheap PC. Get into that. Have a friend build it if you can't build it. Try not to buy a pre-made one from like Dell that's designed to go in an office building. Let's see. Red Phoenix, I have to go. Sorry, you don't really have to apologize, Red Phoenix. James Anderson says, I've reset the factory and only installed Hearthstone and it still crashes. Well, your tablet sounds like it's incredibly underpowered by today's standards. James Anderson's, if you give me a shout out at the end of the stream, I'll let you use my Brazos account. I have no interest in that deal whatsoever. I think he's joking anyways.
Join or die.
Let's see. Apparently XCOM Enemy Unknown, which is a game I got for free and didn't get around to playing this November, is 5 years old now, and I believe the last Half-Life game is 10 years old as of today, and the last or the original Portal is like 10 years old, and the Portal 2 is like 6 years old. So as far as Valve games, it's been a long time since they've done anything bigger than updating Team Fortress or Counter-Strike Go. A speedrunner has danced through Cuphead using a DDR mat. I did watch one high-level player play Cuphead, but most of the people that I've seen who have played it have not been particularly super good at it. And one of the criticisms I'm feeling as someone who hasn't played the game is that honestly the game probably could do some improvements to be a lot tighter and a lot more fair. There seems like there are just some instances where the game either intentionally or accidentally forces the player to take damage, and it's kind of unavoidable, or it's very difficult to avoid. Let's see, James Anderson's new Jackie Chan movie this Friday, kind of like John Wick. I saw that trailer. It did feel a lot like a John Wick game. I would also argue that there's a chance that there's some cheaters out there who are editing footage or just pulling off effectively magic tricks to show that they're doing good on Cuphead, since Cuphead has this reputation of being a little difficult. Honestly, I don't think it is as difficult as some of the games that came out in the Nintendo era of the NES. Like Contra is an unfairly difficult game, and just like impossible. There's a lot of games that are literally impossible. There's a lot of games that are very close to being impossible.
I can't do that.
Must I slay you again?
I hope you like my invention.
And Cuphead is actually possible. The problem I have with the Jackie Chan movie, just to get into movies for a second though, is he's too old. He's really old, and he just kind of needs to retire. He's like Sylvester Stallone and Arnold Schwarzenegger now. Hollywood, and oddly in Jackie Chan's case, Chinese Hollywood equivalent of the Chinese movie making people who who don't make a lot of world-reaching movies. They've really failed to allow new people to come up and take the reins in action movies. Instead, they just stick with the guaranteed profit, and as these characters are just getting older and older, it's getting worse and worse. You know, that's where you get things like Indiana Jones 4, or while it wasn't a bad movie from what I hear, the new Star Wars did kind of have old Carrie Fisher and old Han Solo in it, and there was extra work that had to be done to involve all those people. Extra time, screen time taken up.
That was
Oh, if you're sure.
Join or die.
Play this.
Shall not pass.
Forza. Forza 7 physical sales are down slightly, but I don't think it seems like that the reason for that is other than they just kind of released it at the wrong time. Certainly though, some of their lost sales is because they had major changes to their VIP microtransaction system that made it a much worse deal, and there was a lot of coverage talking about how they were basically ripping off their customers. Apparently one of the cars, I think in Forza 5, was $100 in actual real world money to own. So just own one car in, I think, Forza 5, because I was watching this video of like the top 5 biggest microtransaction ripoffs.
Don't worry, loves. The cavalry's here.
Like, which included the Saboteur, which is a game I really liked and I wish it would come to PC. In the Saboteur, you got this DLC. I think you got it with a season pass, because I know I got it, which basically just took the censoring of strippers out of a single room that was a basically a strip club, but the French word for that, and it took the censoring away, but then they shut down the servers about a month later for that DLC, and because they shut down the servers, it went back to being censored. So anybody that paid that extra money completely got ripped off. I mean, it didn't matter to me one bit. There's plenty of other free nudity online even when that game was up. The main problem I have with Saboteur is it's just not available, and it should be, because it is basically Assassin's Creed set in the time frame of World War II, which is the one time frame that Ubisoft has specifically said they won't place the game in. So, so there is an opportunity to play a game that is like Assassin's Creed without all of the craziness of Assassin's Creed. James Anderson asked a few minutes ago, is Cuphead harder than Ninja Gaiden? I haven't played either one of those games to put a fair value on either one of those, but I would probably say, if the question is Cuphead more difficult than any game that came out for the NES, the Sega Genesis, any console before those two, the Super NES, honestly, probably even before the Nintendo 64. Any console, any game that's known for being hard before the Nintendo 64 is probably harder than Cuphead. Just to really overgeneralize it. But I would say, I do want to balance that out. I feel like Cuphead could use an update to be tighter mechanics. I have yet to see somebody play Cuphead where they are jumping all around the screen and they're beating bosses in one hits. There is a video on YouTube of somebody getting it doing no damage and getting S rank on everything. But even when he's doing that, he's having to use a charge shot like Mega Man, and it's still taking 4 or 5 shots, fully charged shots to defeat the single stage of an enemy. And he's not really just to the point where he's memorized where every single particle could go and dodging it with ease. It's not an elegant dance. It's still very much, I'm playing this game, I'm trying very hard. And in that particular video that's on YouTube, there's a couple places where it makes the sound that he takes damage. There's one boss where he looks like he actually just hits the boss and then the boss dies. So I don't know if he wasn't cheating. In all honesty, like I can't back up these baseless accusations, but there was some weirdness there. But while I would argue Cuphead could really do for an easy mode, like infinite lives, cheat codes, just put in old-fashioned cheat codes, honestly. That would be fine. I've heard rumors that there's a black and white super hard mode, which would make parrying impossible, but I haven't seen it. So I don't know if this is an actual thing you can do or not. It's also kind of not long enough to still have people's attention, probably 2 or 3 months from now. Like there is a community, I'm sure, of people who want to play like the Super Ghouls and Goblins game where you can't take any damage at all. Still to this day, I'm not sure if a year from now very many people are going to play Cuphead and try to get to S rank, because I think everybody that wants to have done it will have done it. Like, I honestly feel like, having not played the game, I could probably get at least A+, if not S rank, on all the bosses within a reasonable amount of 60 to 100 hours, just playing casually. And I'm by no means an expert gamer or expert platformer. Let's see, Diablo 3. The end of Diablo 3 Season 11 is coming as we get on back to news. So I don't know if that means Seasons 12 starts off November 9th. So, like, I don't know what seasons really do for Diablo 3. That's the important piece of information I didn't get from that article. Cuphead is for PC. I believe Cuphead is for PC and Xbox, and it might be on Xbox, on PlayStation.
You're sure?
Like, I know it's for PC, and I'm pretty sure it's for Xbox. You know, Cuphead probably will also suffer pretty badly. Although no real game has come out and said that they've really lost any sales due to the Steam 2-hour no questions asked refund system, which isn't quite no questions asked, because if you start refunding a lot of things, they will eventually look at you a little funny. But because there's, to my knowledge, no demo,
If you're sure.
I believe you could buy Cuphead and in less than 2 hours see if you have a feel, if you like it or not. It doesn't offer a lot. If you can't stand the first section you get into, where you fight a boss immediately, and if you can't beat that boss, then you're not gonna get anywhere in the game, and you should probably quit and refund it then, if you hate that. And if you can't stand the run and gun sections where you are on a scrolling scene fighting smaller enemies, if you can't stand that and you can't get past that, again, you should refund that. There's a lot less run and gun sections, but you actually need to do them because they're the only thing that gives you coins, and if you don't get coins, you can't get the upgraded charge shots. A lot of stuff is not explained so there are upgrades, it seems, in the game that are traps. Like, there's an upgrade that gives you a auto homing shot that reduces your damage. It's a trap, you probably shouldn't ever use it. There's an upgrade that gives you more health but lowers your damage. It's a trap, you probably shouldn't do it. Inherently for this game, you need to be able to do as much damage as fast as possible, and then rely on your ability to dodge the bullets flying at you with actual skill. Nothing that actually helps you in the game to avoid taking damage actually helps you, because it takes away the damage you do to the enemy, and damaging the enemy is key in the boss fights. Actually, in the run and gun things, the enemies just respawn, so if you can get past an enemy without killing them, you probably should. Let's see. Can we kick Pro Gamer? I don't have.
Let me think.
There we go. Well, there was a spammer in the chat,
I hope you like my invention.
and now he's blocked. And I did it on my phone, which means I was dangerously close to accidentally banning the wrong person, because the lines don't line up. Honestly, I hope somebody, either they make a Cuphead 2 and they don't bother to animate it by hand, which took them way too much time. It was a really bad idea, honestly, to hand animate it. It's not the right way to do it. And I hope that they would make a Cuphead 2. It would have relatively the same amount of enemies and bosses, a little bit better platforming, explain things better, have a good setup on the controls by default. The default control scheme is pretty bad, and they could easily just patch that. Like, there's definite room for Cuphead 1 to be patched and fixed and improved, but there's also room for them to move on to the next game, or for a company to copy that nice animation style. I also kind of wonder if there are another 30 styles of enemies that you could draw, because they kind of used every kind of enemy that's ever existed in a game. Well, I have now gone about an hour and 30 minutes, and these episodes are supposed to be 45 minutes, so let's break up here. Stay tuned if you're watching live. As always, I ask you to like, share, subscribe, comment, and watch every second of my videos. If you want a friend to follow me on basically any social media sites, there's a whole bunch of links down below. Thank you for watching. Have a good evening.